Prahar Samaj Jagriti Sanstha, Nagpur, and all the esteemed dignitaries present here. Jai Hind to all of you. Greetings on Kargil Vijay Divas. Today, we are highly honored that General Ved Prakash Malik has agreed to speak to all of us, and we are sharing the experiences of the Kargil war with him. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting the invitation, sir. Prahar Samaj Jagriti Sanstha is the brainchild of late Colonel Sunil Deshpande, VSM. The aim of the organization is to spread soldierly qualities in the society, namely courage, discipline, vigilance, values of life, and patriotism. The organization is an NGO, and to fulfill the aim, Prahar conducts various programs. It is the 27th year of the organization, and the organization has grown in leaps and bounds. It is indeed a matter of pride for Prahar that till today, about 304 girls and boys who have been guided by Prahar are serving as officers in the Indian Armed Forces. A brief introduction about our chief guest, General Ved Prakash Malik. In fact, he doesn't need an introduction. But yes, for the children of our schools, sir, I would like to give the introduction. Our revered chief guest today is a rare gem, a one in a million brave hearts, General Ved Prakash Malik. He was born on 1st November 1939 at Dera Ismail Khan, Northwestern Frontier Province, now in Pakistan. He is a proud alumni of the two devout patriotic organizations, the National Defense Academy Khadakwasla and the Indian Military Academy Dehradun. He was commissioned in 3 Sikh LI on 7th June 1959. He commanded Infantry Brigade in Jammu and Kashmir, where he was awarded the Ati Vishishta Seva Medal, the first of the many awards that followed. In December 1989, he was appointed General Officer Commanding of the Mountain Division, and in August 1992, he assumed command of a corps in Punjab, where he oversaw anti-militancy operations in the state. In July 1995, he was appointed General Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Southern Command, before moving to the Army headquarters as Vice Chief of Army Staff in August 1996. His astute valor was decorated with Param Vishishta Seva Medal in 1996. His gallantry made him assume the charge of the Indian Army as the 19th Chief of Army Staff in 1997. Concurrently with this appointment, he was ably handed over the charge of Chairman, Chiefs of Staff Committee of India with effect from 1st January 1999. His astuteness of coordination and incisive, keen supervision of the planning and execution of Operation Vijay successfully spelled defeat for Pakistan's attempted intrusion in Kargil sector during May to July 1999. He was rightfully felicitated with the Excellence in Leadership Award by the Atur Foundation, Pune, and also the Distinguished Fellowship of the Institute of Directors, New Delhi in 1999. The Doon Citizens Council gave him the Pride of the Nation Award in July 2000, very rightly, sir. He was Colonel of the Sikh Light Infantry from 1990 to 1998 and continues to be the Honorary Colonel of the regiment for life owing to his rarest bravery, avowed determination and persistence of purpose. General Ved Prakash Malik retired on 30th September 2000. May we all give him an astounding welcome for having acceded to share his invaluable experience with us. I humbly salute him and invite the proud son of soil, the very versatile valiant and sagacious General Ved Prakash Malik to kindly address us today. Sir.
Thank you, Shivali. Thank you for a very kind introduction. And my Jai Hind to everyone who's watching us and who's listening to me today. For me, it's a delight to be able to speak to people from Prahar Samaj Jagriti Sanstha for many reasons. Firstly, Shivali's father, Colonel Deshpande, late Colonel Deshpande, he happened to be a company commander in a battalion when I was deputy brigade commander in Dehradun. And that was my first meeting. But then after that also, I kept meeting him. The last meeting, I think, was in Nagpur itself. The fact that Shivali and the family is carrying on with the foundation, the sanstha that was started by him, and which is doing so well, which has already produced so many officers in the armed forces, I think it's a matter of great pride. And therefore, I feel privileged to be speaking to you through that sanstha. Shivali has mentioned that the sanstha's aim is to spread soldierly qualities in the society. I think that's a very important responsibility which all of us, the elders, have to be able to train our youth, to be able to inculcate patriotism and the kind of other qualities like discipline, vigilance, courage, value of life, life not only in the armed forces, but as a civil, in the civil also, and patriotism, of course. So I'm so glad that the foundation is doing such a good job in transforming our youth into good citizens and to help everybody in nation building. When people say congratulations on the Kargil Vijay Divas, I always say that it is not only to me, the whole country, particularly the armed forces, they deserve that, because the wars are not fought at only by the armed forces, but by the whole nation. And every citizen has a role to play. Of course, the armed forces are on the front line, and we have to suffer casualties to be able to save the territorial integrity of our nation. But I think the credit for all that goes to the entire nation, and the whole nation, therefore, is good to see that they are celebrating Kargil Vijay Divas anniversary year after year. The other thing I would like to tell the young people in particular, why do we celebrate these anniversaries? I think that is something which has to be borne in mind. I can give you three important reasons. First, of course, is to pay homage to all soldiers who made supreme sacrifice to defend our nation, ensure its territorial integrity and its people. These are good occasions to meet the families of soldiers who made the supreme sacrifice for the country. And I think that is our first responsibility. And that is why we have the paying of homage by the president, the prime minister, and every citizen, including people like me, to 527 soldiers who made the supreme sacrifice and whom we lost during Kargil war, which went on for over 2.5 months. The second reason I think to celebrate these occasions is to recall the historic event. You know, it is a good thing to find out what happened, why did it happen, what lessons have we drawn from that war, and have we worked on those lessons or not? So this is an analysis which must be carried out year after year. Even today, I feel that perhaps all the lessons that we learned during Kargil war, which were listed by the Kargil Review Committee and in the armed forces, we have not been able to follow those all the lessons. And some, of course, we have followed, have it taken a long time. But this is the occasion where you remember what happened, why it happened, and remember the lessons that should have been drawn from there. And the third, of course, is the most important, that we should remember to make a promise, each one of us, to make a promise and resolve that we as a nation shall work together always and every time with determination whenever such a situation like Kargil war rises again. And that is the only way we can ensure the territorial integrity of our nation. So this determination, as was shown by our soldiers during that war, I think needs to be inculcated and needs to be remembered and needs to be followed by every young person in our country. Now, as far as the war is concerned, I'll just give you a brief overview of what happened. In February 99, if I recall, 20th February, our Prime Minister, at the invitation of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, had gone to Lahore. This was 1 year after we had carried out nuclear tests, first by India, nuclear weapons tests, first by India and later by Pakistan. And both Prime Ministers thought that after this, we can resolve all our problems peacefully through discussion, through talks, and we need not fight again. So we thought that now, hereafter, there will be no wars between India and Pakistan. And so he was invited there, he went there, but in less than 2 months after that, Pakistan Fauji's, Pakistan Army, many of them initially were wearing jihadi dresses, black salwar kameez. They intruded in our area in Dras, Kargil and Siachen. And they occupied territory which is north of the road going from Dojila to Kargil, Leh, and then to Siachen. The intention was to cut off our communication on that road, which is a very important means of communication. In fact, most of Ladakh depends on that road, not only the armed forces, but also the civilians who live in that area. Now, Pakistani intrusion obviously came as a big surprise, both for political people, our leadership, as well as the military. And our Prime Minister, he felt at that time, in one of the conversation, he told Nawaz Sharif that "Aapne hamari peeth mein chura bhonka hai," which is a fact. And the reason was that the Pakistani army had not given full details to their Prime Minister when they waged this intrusion or war. And so it was something which they did without fully informing the Prime Minister or without explaining what would be the implications of that kind of aggression against India. Initially, everybody thought that these were Mujahideens because they were wearing salwar kameez, and our intelligence agencies, I'm afraid, they were totally off the mark. And they also kept feeding us that these are Mujahideen, jihadis. And you know, we have different rules of engagement for jihadis and different for Pakistani army or any army if they attack us. So we had some major challenges, which I'd like to mention here. Those challenges, first, of course, was the terrain. We were now going to fight in a very mountainous terrain from 10,000 to 20,000 feet. There was still a lot of snow in those areas. Most of them had snow even up to the end of May, I would say. And, you know, high altitude, lack of oxygen, it affects not just the human being, but it also affects the weapons and equipment that you have. And unless you are properly equipped, you can have serious problems. And a lot of our 527 soldiers, many of them died because of high altitude effect only. Few, not very many, but there were a few casualties on account of that. The second challenge was there was absolutely no intelligence. As I said, the intelligence people told us that these are only mujahideens who are coming into our territory. And our own surveillance was also, I would say, failed because we didn't have adequate equipment. And during the winter, it is very difficult to carry out patrolling physically, or even to be able to see from a helicopter if there's any intrusion in small numbers. So there was this whole problem, and we had this fog of war for a long time till we were able to. It took us some time to be able to identify who these people were and where all they were located. The third was the shortage of weapons and equipment. And, we had been starved of the funds. So therefore, we were now fighting with nearly 70% equipment and weapons. For so many years, we had not been able to make up our deficiencies or to be able to buy new weapons. That was because the funds were not available. And at one stage, when somebody asked me, how are you going to fight? And I said in a press conference, I said that, look, it doesn't matter. We shall fight with whatever we have. So that was the third one. And the fourth one, I would say, because of our nuclear tests that we had done a year earlier, and we had become a rogue nation for the international community. They thought that now we are a rogue country which has carried out these nuclear tests. So we had no security relations with USA, UK, Japan, and many other countries. As a result, we could not ask them to supply us weapons and equipment. And you must remember that at that time, we were dependent on foreign countries for almost 75% to 80% of our major equipment. So that was the state of affairs at that time. Now, I just want to mention how did we win the war? And I think despite all the challenges that I have just mentioned, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, all three forces got together. And once we got together and we started working on our joint plans, after taking permission and after briefing the cabinet, then it took us a little time to stabilize the situation, to find out as much information as we could, and then try and take the initiative. But once we started capturing these heights like Tololing, 5.51400, or 5.5140, Tiger Hill, in Batalik sector also, in Siachen sector also, then, it was a smooth going thereafter. Of course, we suffered some casualties, but then we were able to recapture. And by the time we captured Tiger Hill, I think the result of the war was quite obvious to the whole world, particularly to the Pakistanis. So the credit for that war first must go to all the forces who were on the front line: Army, Air Force, and not forgetting Navy, which also was operating very effectively in the Arabian Sea. We were chasing their ships, particularly the tanker coming from Dubai. So the first must go to the bravery, dedication of our soldiers, particularly to young officers and their commanding officers. They were up front, and they, whenever I visited and talked to them, they never said it can't be done. That was a spirit, high spirit. In fact, it would raise my morale also whenever I went and spoke to them. And that is how we had these countless acts of gallantry in almost every action. Today, when I remember every action fought to recapture a height, I remember the bravery of those soldiers, some of them absolute exemplary, I would say. But I also must give credit to the political leaders and the rest of the government, because we fought like one unit. as a country, the whole of the government approach, as we call it today. And that was very heartening. And that is the way to fight today. There must be synergy. And as I said earlier also, that it's not the armed forces who fight, it is the whole nation which fights. And that leadership, as well as the political strategy, our military strategy, that flows out from when we work together at the highest level. We have the Prime Minister, who is the chairperson of the Cabinet Committee on Security. So we were meeting every day, sometime even twice or thrice a day. So I must give full credit to them also. They supported us, and whatever planning they did, they helped us in do that. And they gave us the right direction. Plus, I must also give credit to our Ministry of External Affairs, which made sure that we had good relations and good sympathy from the other nations. People who were not talking to us before the Kargil war, thereafter started supporting us, including US or UK. Even China did not say anything against the action that we were doing. The third, I would give it to the whole nation. I have never seen the whole nation together as I saw during that war. North to south, from Manipur to Gujarat to Rajasthan, from Kargil to Jammu and Kashmir, right up to Kerala and Tamil Nadu. We had soldiers who were martyred during that war, but everywhere we got full support. And it was a sight to see when these bodies were sent to their villages, and everyone in those villages would come out and shout Jai Hind and gave us the indication of full support. I have never seen the whole nation working together. Unfortunately, these days we keep fighting with each other on all kinds of smaller issues. But I do hope that if ever a situation like that, like we had in Kargil war, it occurs, the whole nation will be together and there will be no political divide, whether it is opposition or the political parties in the government. They will all work together. You can have your analysis, you can have your investigations afterwards, but during a war, it should not be done, because that would discourage the soldiers who are fighting on the front line. So with that, I would like to conclude my remark once again to say that it was Operation Vijay was a blend of strong and determined political, military, diplomatic elements, all these things. And that was what enabled us to transform an adverse situation, a seriously adverse situation, into a military and diplomatic, emphatic victory. So that is the reason why I keep celebrating 26th July 99, both as a victory and also to pay our homage to the martyrs. Thank you very much. Over to you, Shivali.
Thank you so much, sir. It was an honor to listen to you from the man who has been in the Kargil war and who has seen the Kargil war. Sir, here I would like to take an opportunity and tell you that the students who come for guidance for their SSB and plus for their entrance exams for the NDA, CDS and the AFCAT and the INET, these students, they prepared themselves a slideshow on the Kargil war and the Kargil war heroes and of 1 hour, and they have given, sir, this presentation in 30 different schools of Nagpur, sir, and that's an online presentations. And there, sir, I remember the story of Naik Digender Kumar, in which your reference comes always, sir. General Malik is open to any questions. So if you have any questions, I would like to request you to kindly put it in the chat box. So before I read somebody else's question, I would like to ask you one question, sir.
Go ahead.
Sir, can you please give us a brief about the Operation Talwar of the Indian Navy, sir?
Yeah, as I said, that once we had given presentation and taken the okay from the cabinet, that all the three services, Army, Navy, and Air Force, will fight together, and we will work on a military strategy. And the military strategy at that time was, we wanted to reduce pressure, Pakistani pressure in Kargil sector. You know, Kargil war, we were fighting over a front of 160. But thereafter, we did not know they might like to strengthen that area, or they might even intrude in some other areas, you know. So we worked on a military strategy, all three services, in which the Army, the Navy, as well as the Air Force, they all played a role. The Navy played the role by first moving majority of their Eastern Naval Fleet from the Bay of Bengal to Arabian Sea. And after that, they were now dominating the sea lanes coming from Dubai, from the Gulf area, going to Pakistan. And I remember one day, they were chasing one of the Pakistani oil tanker, and one Pakistani Air Force plane flew over one of our naval ships, and he was warned, don't come again, you'll be shot. So as I said, it was not just the Army and the Air Force, but also Army, Navy, and Air Force. And the military strategy was together. And the strategy was that we will put pressure on them everywhere else, whether it is land border or it is on the sea or in the air, and make sure that they could not strengthen their forces in Kargil sector.
Sir, exactly.
Shivali, I must mention that it was that pressure which ultimately made Nawaz Sharif first run to China seeking for help, and then thereafter run to USA once again, seeking for help from then President Clinton of USA. And so they were literally begging for help at that time. It was that common, joint strategy which worked. Go ahead.
Yes. So we have another question from Karthik Lokhande, who is the defense editor in the Hitwad, sir, the Nagpur daily, for which you had come here, sir, in Nagpur for the program of the centenary celebration, sir.
That's right.
So, and his question is, can you please elaborate on the Siachen angle of Kargil war, sir?
Firstly, I must compliment Hitwad, because when we came there, it was a wonderful function that we attended, and both my wife and I, we both remember it very fondly, indeed. Now the question is about Siachen. You know, Siachen has been a thorn in the bottom of Pakistan army. Should I say that? You know, when we occupied in 1984, from those days onwards, it has pinched them, because they received adverse comments and flack from their own leadership also. And sometimes I think in the early 80s, not early 80s, I would say early 90s, Parvez Musharraf, as a brigadier, he was given charge to recapture some of the heights on Siachen Glacier, and he failed. He tried 3-4 times, and they suffered very heavy casualties again by our boys who were posted on the Saltoro Ridge in Siachen sector. So the angle to that was that they wanted, incidentally, one more, in 1971, we had captured Turtuk village, which is the largest village, and that is the place from where our road enters into the Gilgit-Baltistan. Earlier it was called northern areas, now it is called Gilgit-Pakistan. So these were the factors which were in their mind, and they thought that by cutting off the road, we will not be able to send supplies to our troops in Siachen sector, and that will make it easier for them to reoccupy or to occupy the Siachen heights.
So I think that answers Shri Karthik Lokhande's question very well. So we have another question. That Kargil war was fought on various sectors. Why was Tololing a difficult peak or a difficult sector to recapture? There's this Kuldeep Patil who wants to know about this.
See, Tololing height is in Dras sector, very close to Dras village.
So,
Now it's a town today. And it was fully dominating the road. Our convoys during daytime could not go past Tololing feature towards Kargil or Leh onwards. And so we considered that to be the first objective, which must be captured by us. Otherwise, we will not be able to make use of that road. You know, the convoys could not go during daytime, and they had started going at night. In fact, that was a big problem for us. So that was the first objective that was given once we had reorganized ourselves. And the other reason is that the fight over Kargil, the first major objective, it carried on for a long time. It almost resulted in hand-to-hand fight for almost 5-6 days. So that became important. And once we had captured that, it gave confidence to all of us, particularly to me, I would say, that now we will be able to capture the other. The kind of courage, the kind of bravery and determination that we saw amongst our troops. Primarily, it was 2nd Rajarif Battalion, but 18 Nadirs and others were also helping them. So that gave us the, I would say, the conviction that yes, we can recapture every area which they had occupied.
There is one girl, Aditi Mishra, and she asks, how can we pre-occupy Pak-occupied Kashmir, sir? And what do you think should be done to pre-occupy even Aksai Chin, sir?
Yeah, you know, we are now talking of a very large area.
Yeah.
Even the Pakistan occupied Kashmir also is a very large area. It's a mountainous area.
Yes.
And Siachen, we are talking about the other area which is under the Chinese. That is also again a very large area. You know, we must be very realistic. Today, both countries, I would say all three countries, China, Pakistan, and India, we all have nuclear weapons. You know, and the international community will not permit us to carry on fighting over these long ranges because it will take months and months. Even to recapture our heights in Kargil sector, it took us over 2 months.
Yes.
So fighting in mountains is not easy. It's difficult. It takes time. And particularly areas where you do not have any communication. And, you know, you can't fight with tanks. You have to make use of the Air Force fighting alongside and the artillery, etc. Personally, I feel that it's not possible today, I would say, you know, to forcibly occupy whether it is Aksai Chin or it is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, because of the time it will take and because of the casualty that will suffer and because of the international communication. And today we are fighting a war under the umbrella of nuclear weapons. So yes, we can capture certain territories out of that, part of the territory, but to be able to do the whole thing, I think it is difficult today. And let's be realistic about it.
Yes, sir. Actually, sir. So, in fact, everybody had this question, you know, that during the Kargil war, we could have crossed the LOC and we could have taken back the.
Look, I don't today. In fact, I think in Times of India, there is an interview published by me, and they are also published with me. There also, I said that I wish we had been permitted to go across. I won't say that we would have captured the whole of POK, but we would have been able to capture some part of that territory if we had been permitted. but that was not the political mandate. Political mandate said it was political mandate. In fact, confined us. It was a policy of restraint
Yes, sir.
primarily because of the nuclear weapons
Yes,
that we had tested.
yes, yes. Sir, Colonel Amod Kulkarni, who's retired, sir, his question is, and there was Intel failure, but were we dependent too much on Pakistan on respecting the unwritten protocol or respecting the winter vacated post, sir?
No, there was intelligence failure and there was also surveillance failure. I have mentioned that in the book also. The fact is that there were problems about patrolling and even the Vaso, the helicopter flying over that area with heavy snow. So one can't deny that. But to say that we were not expecting anything and all, we were not expecting large scale intrusion. No doubt about it. We were not expecting this kind of infiltration. And that is why it took quite some time. And even for the local formation, which was there, one brigade, which was deployed in that area, of course, they had very large gaps between their posts. I'm addressing an army officer, so I can tell him that the gaps between the posts were very long, in some places 25, 30 kilometers. So you can't have troops so close to each other. You have to occupy some prominent heights and gaps have to be patrolled, etc. So there were both intelligence and plus there was to some extent that they knew that we can also hit back. So that kind of, I won't say understanding, but that kind of knowledge was there on both sides.
Yes, yes. Sir, there's one very particular question regarding the media, sir. How far-reaching do you think was the significance of media in the Kargil war? Whether it helped in bringing unity amongst the common men in the country, or it gave a bit of moral support to the army, or do you feel that it proved to be a bit of hindrance?
Look, it was a first televised war.
Yes, exactly.
And there is no doubt that it created a lot of problems for us. Handling the media, they would want to go all over the place, which we could not permit them. And particularly that they're wanting to go to the front line. So we had to, put some restrictions. But despite all those restrictions, they went, I can tell you, because we were fighting very close to the roadside. And so media at that time, it was a learning experience, both for us, the military, as well as the media itself. They also made a number of mistakes, and which we pointed out. And of course, as I said, it was a new media age in which everybody had to learn. But by and large, if I would look at it overall, what was the impact? I think it was a positive impact. And there is no doubt that it was the media which created that national spirit supporting us, and occasional stories about our heroes that also helped us in our morale. So all told, media was helpful, but my message to media is that always act responsibly. You must not forget your responsibility to the nation and to the armed forces when they are fighting.
Yes, very true, sir. Very true, sir. So we have one person, Rishabh Makde, who wants to know how did you handle the pressure during the Kargil war, sir?
Well, pressure is always there in such situations, and first, of course, I must thank the armed forces, our army, which has trained us. You have been an Air Force officer yourself.
Yes.
When you go to the academy, they train you to withstand all kinds of pressures. Of course, when you grow up in rank, so pressures are more and you learn to. But There is a lot of stress individually, personally, but here, when we are talking of stressful events, stressful situation, I always believe that all our armed forces, all men, women in the armed forces, firstly, we are all believers.
So,
We believe in
yes,
God
yes, sir.
Almighty, whichever
Yes,
form
sir.
it may be. So that is
Absolutely.
something which and we maintain that spirit during the war,
Yes,
every time. The second is also the family.
yes,
Family is a great support, and whether they are living with you or they are away from you, it happens in the armed forces. But they are I always say that they are a stress buster uh, among the soldiers. So that
yes,
is the
sir.
second one. And third, of course, always is your colleagues, the colleagues which help you to raise your morale. As I said, uh, I would see more long faces in Delhi than I saw on the front line. You
Sir.
know, so people had doubts in Delhi, but
Sir.
people who were fighting on the front line, they
Sir.
never gave any indication of being under कि look ये नहीं हो सकता या ये मुश्किल है. They never
Yes,
said anything of that nature.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Exactly, sir. Sir, another question we have is from Sandeep, Sandeep Tizare, and he asked a very interesting question, sir. In a warlike situation or during the Kargil war, uh, what usually is expected out of a common man, or what do you expect uh, as an officer of the defense forces from a common man?
Look, firstly, I think it's the moral support which is important.
Yes, sir.
It's not just the money and all. A lot of people donate money for us to be for our welfare of the soldiers, particularly
Yes,
those who get killed in action, or
yes,
even to buy weapons, etc., etc. But the
yes,
most important part is that moral support should be there from the common man, which
yes, yes,
which is reflected through the media. We don't hear the common man, but we hear the media saying that. The
yes,
second
sir.
thing is that when such incidents take place and you have the martyrs, when you get to know in your neighborhood that somebody who's lost a soldier from the family, then
Yes,
it is the sympathy which is required to that family, you know.
yes, sir.
And I think it is our duty as a citizen to go and show our support to those families. Not only that time, but I would say year after year.
Sir.
The martyrs' families do not expect money now. I think most of them have got enough money and they're living a reasonable life. But what they expect from the nation is that somebody should keep telling them, reminding them, or going and telling them that, look, we know that you lost a brave heart from your family,
Yes,
and
sir. Yes,
we acknowledge that. I
yes,
think that is important, not during the time when we are fighting, but even afterwards also, like we are doing these days.
yes, yes, exactly, sir. Like, sir, our organization, Prahar Samaj Jagruti Sanstha, every year during Raksha Bandhan, sir, we send rakhis to the soldiers posted at the borders, sir.
Yeah.
And that is conducted. And plus, Prahar also conducts a very wonderful program by name Hero of the Nation, sir, where we felicitate the Ashok Chakra awardee or the Paramveer Chakra awardee or their next of kin. And we present some amount on behalf of the organization to the next of kin or the soldier himself, sir.
Yeah, it definitely helps in raising the morale of the soldiers
Yes,
on the
sir.
front line. There's no doubt about it. The kind of action that you have sending Rakhis. Even during Kargil war, the Army Wives Welfare Association, they sent a packet of sweet to the soldiers. And you
Yes,
cannot imagine the reaction from the soldiers when those sweet packets were delivered to them by the Air Force and the Army on the ground.
yes, sir.
They were sent from Delhi, and so the letters that we received after that was very encouraging. So
Yes.
you have to find ways of keeping them encouraged, which is very helpful. But as I said, the families who lose their brave hearts
Sir.
they need to be given respect for the sacrifice, not only of that man or a woman, but also of the family.
Yes. Yes. So we have, I think this should be the second last question. We have Shivani Patil from Mumbai who wants to know, you mentioned, sir, about the Kargil Review Committee also while talking to us, sir. So what were the lessons that were derived from the Kargil Review Committee, sir?
There were a very large number of lessons,
Sir.
In fact, it came out in a book form subsequently.
Sir.
Most of them were put in the public domain, and
Sir.
all mostly at the they referred to intelligence failure,
Sir.
why it had happened. They also referred to the lack of of surveillance equipment, shortage of weapons and equipment. They also
Sir.
referred to the shortcomings in our higher defense control organization.
Sir.
That we need to have greater synergy, better jointmanship amongst the three services. So there were a very large number of recommendations that were made by the Kargil Review Committee, and the same thing subsequently by the group of ministers report. Unfortunately, although they had recommended CDS, Chief of Defense Staff, but the government took almost 20 years to have a Chief of Defense Staff. So
exactly,
many of these recommendations have still not been followed up properly, and some recommendations, of course, were followed up. But what is also important is not only to follow up, but follow it up in letter and spirit. The tough wars must be avoided. One of their objective was that the tough war between the civilian bureaucracy and the man in uniform in the Ministry of Defense, in the armed forces. That tough war continues. So we need to make sure that there is no tough battle this is part of high defense control organization. What is also very important is, that the armed forces, now they have to react very fast, as we did in Kargil also. And therefore, you require synergy at all levels. And in any policy making that we do on security issues, the armed forces must be kept in the loop.
Yes.
If you don't keep them in the loop and you try and give them directions after something has happened, then it takes time. You spend time, and you have to start from the scratch. So I'm convinced that unless we have the armed forces in the loop on all security policies, we will not be able to react as fast as it is required.
Yes.
Or in a synergetic fashion.
Yes. Yes. So just two more questions with your permission, sir. One question.
I thought it was one. Now you made it two. Okay.
So just last two questions, sir. So one question is from a 10th standard student, Soham Masurkar, and he happens to be a student of CPN Berar Education Society's Prahar Military School's student, sir. And he says that, can we expect another Kargil 2 in the coming future?
I feel that Pakistan has been deterred.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't think they would dare to do such an action again. But then Pakistan is Pakistan.
Actually, sir.
And you cannot trust them fully. And therefore, while we may not expect to have a very major conventional conflict, but I think we should always remain alert. And you never know that any skirmishes can take place.
Yes.
Whether it is a short front or a slightly longer front, we have to be prepared for that. And if they do that, then we must give a very strong answer.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Then we must give them a very strong answer so that they are deterred. I think Pakistan requires deterrent action frequently whenever they
You,
create mischief.
you said it very right, sir. Very right, sir. So this last question is from Deepak Edlabadkar, and he's asking this question from Pune, sir. What change do you feel after there is a stable government at the center as far as the military conduct and the military strategies is there after 2014, sir?
So there have been a major change,
Sir,
I must say that. And you know, earlier days before 2014,
sir,
we were always defensive. Our reactions were defensive, very cautious, and not wanting to, not wanting to be not proactive.
yes,
Even when we crossed it is not that we did not cross the LOC earlier, before before the Uri action that we took,
yes,
you know, what they called cross LOC or whatever.
yes,
We did that, but we were always, the armed forces were always left wondering whether the political support will be there or not there. And as you know, even during Kargil war, we were told, don't go across. At one stage, the Air Force wanted to just go a few kilometers so that they could engage
yes, yes.
Muntadalo, which was very close to the LOC, but they were not permitted. So, you know, all the armed forces were told. After 2014, the manner in which we have now started responding proactively,
Yes,
whether it was the surgical strike, or it was the Balakot operation,
yes,
or it was what happened in Sikkim, in that area against the
Yes.
Chinese. So
yes,
today the tendencies are, even last year, you know, when the Chinese came and we occupied that Kailash range.
yes,
So this proactive strategy, or that kind of a support with the armed forces is been, there is a change there, and
yes,
we feel happy about it, I would say.
yes.
You know, we feel happy about it because that is a better way of defending the nation.
Actually, sir, it was a pleasure indeed talking to you, sir. And sir, we feel that the time should go on and on and on, but then we have some limits, sir. I know you're busy. You've taken out time specially for us, sir, and we are highly, highly, highly grateful to you, sir. Thank you so much for your wonderful talk. I would like to now invite Colonel Anirudh Deshpande to kindly give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shivali. Well conducted. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much, sir.
In military history of independent India, from the man whose leadership inspired
I think
men and officers.
Anirudh is not audible.
Am I audible, sir?
Not adequately. Yeah.
Am I audible now, sir?
Yes.
Child, sorry, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we just witnessed the story of major milestone in the military history of independent India, from the man whose leadership inspired men and officers to give us remarkable stories of valor and courage. These stories and sacrifices of men will be remembered for the ages to come. It was our proud privilege to have General Ved Prakash Malik, Param Vishesh Seva Medal, Ati Vishesh Seva Medal, to give us an insight his precious time from his busy schedule and enlightening us on various aspects of Kargil war. He took on various questions patiently, and we thank you for that, sir. I also take opportunity to thank Mrs. Shama Deshpande, President, Prahar Samaj Jagruti Samstha, who conceptualized the conduct of this program to honor our heroes who have given supreme sacrifice for our motherland. I would also like to thank all the veterans and Praharis who have taken out their precious time to attend this event and make it a great success.